Welcome to today's episode of the Advisory Cloud podcast. Today we've got a real special treat. Joining us is Mark Osborne. He's a marketing and technology trailblazer who's been recognized by AdAge Magazine for his innovative approaches. He's got over 2 decades under his belt and has really been at the forefront of creating revenue systems for SaaS, tech, and B2B services firms. But he's not just a strategist. He's a hands-on expert. He has built marketing solutions for many Fortune 500 and 5,000 companies and has forged successful business partnerships with some of the giants like Meta and Google. He is also the author of a new book, which has been a bestseller. Title of the book is Are Your Leads Killing Your Business? And we'll definitely be diving into that in a bit. So first off, Mark, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thanks so much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. And my name's Chris Beaver. I'm co-founder of AdvisoryCloud and the host of the AdvisoryCloud podcast. And if you don't know about AdvisoryCloud, go check us out. We help executives connect with advisors that can help them solve problems and drive their businesses forward. We've made over 10,000 connections in the last year alone. And no matter what size of your company, we can connect you with advisors that can help you grow your business. So check us out over at advisorycloud.com. So, Mark, I definitely want to hop into your book and talk about your goals as an advisor on AdvisoryCloud. But I also want to start with a little bit about your origin story, if you will, specifically how working in the music industry got you going. Because I got my start in music as well. Was actually a music major in college and worked as a gigging musician in recording studios before I started my first company. So start us off there. How did you make this move from music? What did that look like for you? And where'd you go from there? Where'd you take it?
Yeah, I used to tell the joke that I just wrote music so that I'd have a product to market because what I really loved was the marketing. And so in college got involved with some concerts and booking bands and doing some sort of managing of bands. And so I had a sort of a stable of bands that I managed, and I also played, but I wasn't nearly as good as the people I worked with. So I was really lucky there. But in the early days of the internet, so you may or may not remember this, people couldn't get onto the internet all the time. In fact, sort of like once a week, once a month, people would go get access to the internet. And so there were sort of BBS Usenet groups, which were essentially billboards where people would go post an ad on a billboard like you might do at your local grocery store. And then people would, come back and check their messages. There was no such thing as spam yet. So your username was your email address because you wanted everyone to email you. And you were so excited when you got an email. And so people were going on to these Usenet groups and trading bootleg concert tapes. I have the Dave Matthews show from Birmingham in September, or I have Fish from DC in October. And so I found these Usenet groups, and I realized, well, I know what kind of music they like, and I know where they live near, and I know their email address. So I started building databases of people that liked different genres of music that lived in different areas. And whatever one of my bands that sounded like that genre went to that city, I'd send everybody an email. And so I was doing database marketing and behavioral segmentation before we had a name for it. And that led to a job at a radio station and a job at a record label, which led to a career in marketing. But had a chance to work with some amazing musicians along the way and had a chance to have some fun too. Picked up a nice microphone along the way too.
Wonderful. Well, super exciting. And great to hear about somebody else going from music and turning that into a career of entrepreneurship and marketing. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then next up, obviously your book. That's a big topic that I want to dive into today. It's been an Amazon bestseller, so congratulations on that. And I know it's helped a lot of folks out there. And I know you've got a little surprise for our listeners today. But walk us through what led you to this book. What was the inspiration for this book?
Absolutely. So first off, thanks for mentioning that surprise. So I'm going to give a free download to the first 50 people that go to modernrevenuestrategies.com/free download. First 50 folks can get a copy. It comes with the book as well as some free calculators. I'll send you the links to some videos where I go deeper on some of the topics as well, and I think will be really helpful. So the book is really focused specifically on the B2B space, and specifically for sort of early stage companies. So kind of got product market fit, so kind of $500,000 a year or more up to about $20 million. Companies in that stage, and really within sort of the SaaS tech B2B services space that are dealing with sort of long sales cycles, complex buying committees with lots of different decision makers for sort of large contracts. And because working with companies like that, I've seen a lot of similar problems across those companies. And over the last couple decades, I've developed some systems and seen some success. But something really interesting happened with the COVID lockdowns, which is that some trends that were already taking place in the B2B, buying and sales landscape really accelerated. I think McKinsey and Company says it accelerated by 10 years and 10 months. So if you think about, the normal pace of change really accelerating in some really dramatic ways. And so we suddenly saw that now 70% of the B2B buying journey is done before a company will ever contact a vendor. Whereas even just a few short years ago, it was pretty common for a buyer that was looking to buy a new SaaS product to call 2 or 3 of the top providers and talk to them about what their needs were and have them tell them what they should be looking for as they're evaluating options in the space. Whereas now those buyers are really all the way to the end of their buying journey before they, really engage with anyone. So companies that were reliant on sort of an interpersonal salesperson to make a sale, or were really reliant on going to conferences and finding opportunities that way, or were sort of slinging the old school, let's put a white paper behind an email download, and then everyone that downloads it, we're going to call them a qualified lead. Those companies got really passed by really fast. And so a lot of those companies saw the pandemic lockdowns as a pause button. So they kind of put pause on going to conferences and a lot of their marketing and sales activities. And then once the world started opening back up again, they just pressed play. And they were doing all of the same things that they had been doing, but now it just wasn't working. And so I had seen that in talking with a number of founders and owners of companies. And so I looked at it and did some research and saw just how dramatically the landscape had changed. And so I wanted to really put together a playbook for companies that could adapt to this new modern landscape. And so that's what the book's about. And it's titled, "Are Your Leads Killing Your Business?" Because one of the things that we see is, there's an obsession with growth. Not surprising. Companies are like sharks. They only survive if they move forward. But the sort of obsession with a high quantity of marketing qualified leads, or leads coming in the front end for these businesses, had really led to an erosion of quality. And unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many resources a company can put into chasing opportunities. And when you don't have the systems in place to attract the right quality of prospects that are aligned with your product and buying vision, and then put the right focus and emphasis on closing those best deals in the market, you're basically left getting the table scraps from your competitors that are doing those things. And those table scraps are worse than no business at all, because they actually pull you further behind your competition because they're distracting you from your core mission. These are, clients that wind up needing a lot of customization, a lot of hand holding, and they never really, bought into or aligned with your product or buying vision to begin with. So they're not advocates for you in the marketplace. They don't renew, and if they do, they want extreme discounts to do it. And so those kinds of leads can actually kill your business rather than growing your business. And so this obsession with quantity of leads was really sort of hurting a lot of businesses, creating this death spiral. And so we really wanted to call out in the book that focusing on quality and then building systems to attract the right prospects for those quality leads, and then to accelerate them through the sales pipeline by putting the right resources against them, and then to activate those clients for renewals, upsells, and referrals. Those were really the keys to success in the modern landscape. And so that's what we sort of talk about in the book, and how to sort of implement those systems.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know obviously that, that quality over quantity leads into something else that you've spoken about in the past, which is that 80/20 rule
That's right.
of leads and how that can deliver growth, especially in challenging markets. Walk us a little bit more through that 80/20 rule and what that means, how that relates to what we were just speaking about.
Sure. Well, I mean, everyone's heard that 80% of your revenues comes from 20% of your clients, and that tends to be pretty true. Looking at hundreds of account lists over the last few decades, and unfortunately, that other 80% that doesn't make 80% of customers that only make up 20% of your revenues usually wind up eating up more than 20% of your time. And so by having systems to identify who are your tier one ideal customers, what did they look like in terms of both firmographics, but also kind of context and psychographics, what sent them to market? What are the things they're looking for out of products like yours? Why did they choose you? And why do they continue to work with you? By building systems that allow you to identify that, you can predict those companies that will be those 80% of revenues from just those 20% of clients, so that you can focus your energy and efforts on bringing in those opportunities and then servicing those clients, because that's what's really going to propel your business forward. That's what's going to get you to 30 to 50% of your business coming from referrals, which is what we see as, sort of a really healthy metric for companies. Whereas a lot of companies are, lucky if they get any referrals, because they don't have a system built to identify, well, who are those ideal customers? And then how do we ask them for referrals of more companies like them? And so by focusing on that 20% of customers that make up 80% of your revenues, and getting better at building the systems that will attract more of them, accelerate more of them, activate them to bring in more, that's really where the success comes from.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, systems is something that you talk about a lot, and a systems-based approach, and how these systems and these growth systems can be so key to driving not only innovation, but also creativity, even outside of some of these lead-based systems and through those pieces of the sales and marketing funnels. So talk to us a little bit more about this systems-based approach and how that can help get the marketing juices flowing, and how that leads to growth hacks and faster hacks and just overall improved metrics throughout some of the marketing teams that you've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was another thing that I have seen over the course of my career, and especially in the last few years, is this sort of obsession with growth hacks, and this obsession with this idea of there's a silver bullet where I can game the algorithm, and that it's just going to blow up my inbox with new customers that want to come to me. So the marketing technology organization does a tracking, and you might have seen Scott Brinker does a great job of all these logos of all the companies in the MarTech space. There are 10,000 different marketing technology, ad tech, and data providers today, all really focused in B2B, all of which essentially are claiming that they're going to, be that magic bullet for you.
Right.
It's impossible to keep up with that speed. Like that is just an unwinnable task to try to keep up with 10,000 different vendors. And I was a big believer in sort of gaming algorithms and knowing, and I was certified in every technology. I put some of the first ads on Facebook and Instagram, and worked for a company that used artificial intelligence and machine learning to piece apart all that natural language processing to understand, how to game the ad algorithm. So much so that AdAge Magazine named me a marketing technology trailblazer. I was really on that cutting edge. But what I saw is no amount of hacks was as successful as having a strategic, holistic approach to the marketplace, and then building systems to sort of keep you focused on the right things. And then to sort of make sure that you're doing your best work every time. And that's what a system does, is it it really allows you to be your best self every time. You can always have your best day at work because you've built a system that can constantly be refined. The other thing that systems do too is they create an opportunity for more collaboration. Instead of me wagging my finger at an employee for not doing a good job, we can work together to build a system. And then if we don't get the outcome that we were looking for, we can talk about, well, was it that you didn't follow the system, or is it that the system's broken? And if you didn't follow the system, well, then well, that's something I need to do better on. But if the system's broken, we can work together to fix it. And that creates a lot more harmony within organizations. It creates a lot more sort of stability. Forecasts actually wind up paying off. And you know you're going to get the return on that investment. And so we have a phrase around here. We say, B2B growth systems to set you free. Because once you have those systems in place, you really gain a lot more freedom from worry, freedom from being held hostage by an agency or a consultant that's going to sell you some new growth hack every month or tell you to buy more ads. And instead, really freedom to focus on building the solutions you want to build and delivering results for your clients.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I've seen in terms of having really strong systems in place, especially in marketing teams, is that it can also help with decision paralysis, which I think a lot of marketing teams struggle with, which is, okay, we've got these 20 different ideas. Which direction do we want to go? But if you have that system, if you have that framework in place, and, it can be any type of system, whether that's just, even OKRs or a basic set of KPIs, whatever that is to help set your North Star, can really help just keep the team aligned and keep everybody moving forward. So that is some great stuff.
That's a great point. In fact, I've been doing, and I'll offer this to your audience as well. I've been doing like an hour-long, sort of assessment of growth systems for companies, because I've got a great collection of benchmarks that I've built over the years of, a good company of this size and this space should be sort of seeing these kind of metrics, these KPIs. And so in the space of just 30 minutes, we can sit down and I can help you diagnose where's your biggest opportunity for growth, and then give you some ideas, and so you can get started on that path. Because again, that decision paralysis can be really crippling. And I always tell companies, usually there's about 10 smart things you could do in the next year, but you only have the bandwidth to do 3. So how do you pick those 3? And some of it is just having some external insight on, well, what should my cost per acquisition be? What should my, CAC to lifetime value ratio be? What should my referral rate be? And so we've got some benchmarks there that it helps sort of put a spotlight on, this is the closest shark to the boat. Let's focus there first, get that solved. And then that sort of creates an opportunity to move into other areas of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. That's great. That's great. And that's actually a perfect segue, because you mentioned a couple of key metrics there in terms of CAC to LTV or CPA, whatever those particular metrics for your business that you're looking at any given time. But something that you've spoken about is creative customer journey approaches, and how that can lead you to growth without necessarily having to increase that budget month over month. Walk us through a little bit there in terms of how you've leveraged that customer buying journey and some of those messaging systems that you've used to do exactly that, to grow your customer acquisition without having to grow your budget.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've worked in advertising and media for a long time, and have certainly worked with some amazing ad agencies that do great work. Unfortunately, the default position for most agencies is spend more money. And the reason they say that is because it does work. And the way that it works is it creates sort of trust and credibility, because your audience is hearing that message over and over. And so there's a subliminal indication that, well, if they can afford to spend, they must have some success. And that continuity, that continuous telling of the same story over and over, that repetition, that builds trust. But it's not nearly as powerful as finding sort of unpaid ways to build that trust. And so the way that I have seen companies sort of achieve that growth without, spending money is, it starts with a really crisp understanding of a positioning strategy that's differentiated in your marketplace, so that you are generating demand while you're creating awareness. You're not just, hey, I also exist. I'm like these other people that you might have heard of, and I'm also here. But instead, it's, here's how I'm different, And if this is what matters to you, I'm a company you should be talking about. So there's a real value proposition built into that. Once you have that differentiated positioning strategy, then understanding that customer journey, going from being aware of the problem and evaluating the business case, is this one of the 3 things I should do this year? To then, well, there's 5 ways to solve it. Which way should I look at to solve it? And then there's 5 providers for the way that I've decided to solve it. Which one of them should I choose? And then, am I happy enough with it that I want to, make recommendations and renew and continue to work with them? Like that journey. When you really understand that journey and what are the informational needs that your customers have at each stage, and you can then create the content that speaks specifically to that informational need, but is reflective of that overarching positioning strategy, then you have a consistent story throughout. And so you can tell the story about, here's why it's worth solving this problem, very top of funnel. But through your lens, through your perspective, your buying vision, and that companies that start to sort of align with that will say, yeah, I can see why this would be worth solving. And the reason that these people approach it that way seems to make sense, so that as they get further down the funnel, you're a company that they want to sort of consider. But having that consistent storytelling and mapping out that customer journey leads to really innovative ways and really innovative solutions that oftentimes cost a lot less than buying more ads, but do an even better job of building that trust and building that credibility because you're telling a consistent story, but in more places, not just in the advertising angles. And sometimes you need to support that with ads as well, but it's not the only way to go about doing it.
Right. And now talk us through, and I know you've spoken in the past about some guerrilla tactics that you've used in terms of account-based marketing, but talk us through, there's a lot of discussion obviously these days around multi-channel touch points and making sure that you're everywhere that your customer may be. But talk us through some of those guerrilla strategies, because you've had a lot of fun in the past with some of those. So talk to us about those, how those came about, and how were those effective for the teams that you were working with?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about the time we baked 100 cakes. So I was working with an ad tech company that all of their competitors were really outspending them. They had a lot of VC funding, so they were plastered everywhere at all the conferences, and it was really hard for this company to sort of break through. We started by really getting precise on that differentiated positioning strategy, and as part of that, we did a deep analysis of who is our ideal customer. Who is that tier 1 customer? And what we noticed was they had done a better job of connecting with ad agencies. All of their competitors had been going directly to the CMOs, directly to the senior vice presidents at brands to sell this ad tech product to the brand itself, not to the ad agency. Along the way, this company had started to sort of carve a niche with the ad agencies. And there were actually some aspects of the product that made them better suited to serving ad agencies. And so they leaned in on that from a product perspective and started to emphasize those. But then in understanding the journey that the decision makers at ad agencies go through, if you've spent much time with ad agencies, it tends to be long hours. And so there's a lot of meals at your desk. And so food is generally a pretty welcome gift at an ad agency. And so recognizing this and understanding, where we fit into the puzzle, we also recognize that, ad agencies don't want to have technology that outshines them. They want technology that fades into the background, that lets them shine for their clients. The average lifespan of an agency gets shorter and shorter because they're always up for review. And so we wanted to really emphasize our ability to make them look good. So we baked a bunch of cakes, put their agency logo front and center, said, we make you shine. We put you in the spotlight. Had our logo very small at the bottom, had a press release that went out with it, timed that with an email and phone call campaign that hit the same day, that also talked about some publicity and a recent product innovation that again made the product even more suited to that ad agency customer. It led to really carving out a much stronger niche with ad agencies that ultimately led to a successful exit for the company to a sort of a household name in that space. So a very successful exit. They could never have won the battle with their overfunded competitors going straight to CMOs. But instead, they found a niche that they could carve out that then made them a relevant player in the space, which led to much more success.
Wonderful. Wow. Fascinating stuff. And thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about that. Really exciting. And now I've got to get to this because you are an Advisory Cloud member. And for those of you that don't know about Advisory Cloud, we have over 10,000 advisors, just like Mark, that are looking to advise companies on all sorts of topics, and they can help you solve that challenge or even take advantage of that next opportunity in your business. So Mark, first off, what are you looking to gain from adding some additional advisory work? Because obviously you're already advising and working with a number of companies. Yeah. So what are you looking to gain from adding additional advisory work to your resume through Advisory Cloud?
So, some of it is just sort of kind of personal enrichment, but also sort of professional enrichment in that, I find the best way to learn how to solve problems is to solve problems. And so by working with even a broader, more diverse set of customers beyond my customer base, the people within Advisory Cloud, I'm able to get even more of a pulse of what's happening in the marketplace. So then when I come back to my clients, I've got that perspective of what's happening, not just within my client base, but also with some other companies. And I get the opportunity to bring the expertise that I have from working with other companies and deliver some insights and to be helpful for some of those companies that are starting out, the members of Advisory Cloud, to kind of give back. And in some ways, it's being able to help them have that insight and see that is very personally rewarding, and the opportunity to sort of build that, and it also just gives more credibility to me as a thought leader and as a as an insight in the industry to say I've seen these problems and I've helped to deliver some solutions against them, rather than just there's someone told me one time that the secret to success is generosity, and I'm a big believer in sort of add as much value as you can and get paid for it along the way somehow. But and so being able to be generous and to put ideas out there that are helpful for folks and not keep it all closeted up, behind the curtain. That's why I'm giving away the book for free. I want as many people to read it as can, so that they can sort of really get that value out of it. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And you spoke a little bit to this just in terms of the types of companies that you're looking to advise, but are there any specific types of companies or maybe companies looking to solve a particular challenge that you're really excited about looking to advise through Advisory Cloud?
Yeah. So, it's funny. We see that to get to kind of 500,000 or $1 million a year in the SaaS tech B2B services space. So again, people dealing with long sales cycles, large contracts, complex buying committees. There's sort of a set number of things that you need to do. And a lot of it's just sort of like put your shoulder into it and plow the asphalt with your face till you get it done. And that's kind of why I wrote the book, to sort of be like, hey, here's the primer on what you need to do to sort of get there and do that. But then to get to that next phase of growth, to get from $1 million to 5 million or 10 or 20, you really need some more creative thinking. And so that's where I sort of add the most value, is helping you prioritize. Well, there's 10 things you could do. What are the 3 you need to do right away? And we typically see that when companies get to 20 million a year in revenues, they need a full-time CMO. They need someone full-time in-house. But oftentimes to get there, hiring a CMO can be expensive. A lot of times they want equity. There's overhead, and there's they tend to be big personalities, and so there's some sort of founder issues and all that stuff. Whereas we can come in as an external advisor for a lot less money and give them the sort of the same high quality insights that'll get them to that 5 million, to that 10 million, to that 20 million. And we're building people, processes, and technology along the way, so that when that full-time CMO does come in, they're not inheriting a shambles. It's not all held together with duct tape and baling wire. Instead, like, there's a real process. There's systems built so that they can then take you from 20 million to 100 million.
Got it. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And we're going to be wrapping up here, but before we go, please give us that link one more time
That's right.
where our listeners can find your book, and I'll make sure to get that in the description for today's show as well. But give us that link one more time.
Sure. It's modernrevenuestrategies.com/free download. And as I said, you'll get a zip file that's got the book as well as some calculators. And I'll also follow up with some links to some videos for go deeper on some of these topics.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Mark, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today. Get to learn about the book and all about your background and your expertise. So we really appreciate that. And for everybody watching, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We publish multiple new interviews like this per week with leading executives just like Mark. So take a look there. And again, if you don't know about Advisory Cloud, go check us out at AdvisoryCloud.com. We help executives connect with companies that can help them take their careers to the next level. And whether you're looking to get advice or give advice, check us out over at AdvisoryCloud.com where you can get started for free. Mark, again, a real pleasure. Look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.